My name is Raquel Glenos,
I'm Mary Whiskey.
And I'm Ashley Barnett.
and our project was volunteering with the Mequon Nature Preserve. So what we'll be talking about today is about the Mequon Nature Preserve, what they do, our progress, the service learning, and our take-home message and test question. So the Nature Preserve was founded by Richard Paddock, and he founded the preserve and said it would be good to save a little land. And the goal was to restore beech maple forest and wooded wetlands that were present in the 1800s. And Andrea will talk a little more about the picture.
So this is Harvey's Woods. This is a picture that Emily Biaggi sent me, and this is what the Mequon Nature Preserve wants their 400 acres to look like someday. They want it back to its original wetland state. So this is one example of what they want it to look like in the future.
All right, and the preserve has grown over 438 acres in the last 10 years, and it has over 5 miles and trails for hiking, biking, and anything else. And they have different volunteer events to help maintain the preserve, and the city of Mequon leases the property for $1 a year. And they have different programs and activities that are funded by different organizations, and they'll have different schools and youth groups come in to do volunteering, educational events. Some events that they have that we all did were bird watching for species identification, removal of invasive species, and planting native trees and flowers. I'll hand it over to Andrea.
All right, so the Mequon Nature Preserve uses environmentally friendly sources in order to get its energy. For example, they use wind power, solar energy, and geothermal energy. On my first day of volunteering, I talked with Jason Nichols, and he told me a little bit about these things. So you can see the wind turbine right here, you can see the solar panel, and then this just represents the geothermal energy that they use. Also, the Mequon Nature Preserve has a green roof, as we saw in lab. This helps to absorb the water so that it doesn't just run off of the roof and cause flooding in the parking lot. And it looks pretty too, so that's another positive to that. Another thing that the Mequon Nature Preserve does is it uses bamboo for much of its wood inside the building. And this is really beneficial to the environment because bamboo can grow relatively quickly. Instead of chopping down trees that would take years and years to grow, they're using a source that can be easily renewable. And this is another piece of information that Emily Biaggi shared with us when we went to lab. And something that Dr. Ablin pointed out when we went to lab that I wanted to highlight again is that if you look at this pavement in their parking lot, this might be a little difficult to tell, but on this half of the parking lot, the gravel is spread out a little bit more than this half. And that is again so that the water can seep through the parking lot instead of just pooling. So again, it helps to prevent flooding, which is a really great thing for them. So this is the progress of the Mequon Nature Preserve within the past few years. As Raquel said, they're trying to restore the land from farming land to wetland that it was originally. And they want to do this because it can help bring back the native species that were originally at the preserve. These are a couple of pictures that Emily Biaggi sent me from her presentation, so that was really nice of her. This is what the preserve looked like in 2005. You can see it's all farmland right now. And then in 2011, you can already see the progress that the Mequon Nature Preserve has made. You can just see the difference between the two. So it really is benefiting the environment and helping to bring back the native species. A couple more pictures of the progress of the Nature Preserve. Again, you can see in 2005 it was just farmland, and now in 2008 and 2013 it looks beautiful and back to the wetland state that it was in. They have a lot of work to do. Obviously it's over 400 acres, but you can see that they're making progress. So these were a couple of other pictures that Emily Biaggi sent to me. So as Raquel said, we each had different tasks because we went there on different days. So my tasks were removal of invasive species such as buckthorn, general preserve upkeep, wildlife monitoring, and I also helped with their educational aspect a little bit, which I'll go into detail a little bit further. Ashley participated in the Great Wisconsin Bird-a-thon, and she'll elaborate on that later. And Raquel did some planting, she named some trees and worms, and she's going to be volunteering there in the summer to do some more work. And with that, Ashley will talk to you about her experience.
Right, so for my service learning, I went bird watching, and you're probably wondering what bird watching has to do with community service. but it's actually part of the Great Wisconsin Birdathon, which is an event that they have at Mequon every year. It's hosted by the Wisconsin Organization for Ornithology, which is the study of birds, and basically they raise a ton of money every year through their supporters, and they have all of the different nature preserves around Wisconsin will participate in a 24-hour period where they'll try to find as many bird species as possible. And depending on how many species you find depends on the amount of money you get. So the more they find, the more money the preserve gets. So you go and you help them spot different birds. And it's really fun and interesting. All of these birds migrate from South America, Mexico, southern part of the United States, all the way back to Wisconsin every year around this time of year to breed. And there are over 150 different species of migratory bird. So here you can see an American robin feeding her babies and an oriole feeder. And then we also saw a juvenile red-tailed hawk, and it caught something to eat. This is a sororale, which is kind of a tiny marsh chicken. And then a scarlet tanager and an American blue jay. So all in all, we went out 2 times, once in the morning for about 2 hours, and we found maybe 26 or 27 different species. And then we went back out that evening and for about 3 hours and found like 21 species. So there'll be a little bit of overlap between the two, but still quite a bit of money that we'll bring in from it. And then this final picture is a field swallow, and it is sitting at a birdhouse. And Mequon, to promote breeding, will have different types of birdhouses to attract different birds. They have a screech owl box, they have kestrels, bluebirds, swallows, wood ducks, and fun fact, also flying squirrels, but they haven't seen any yet, but they're down the street, so they put in boxes in hopes they'll see them soon.
Alright, so my aspect of the project mainly was clearing away areas so that they could plant native species again at the preserve. I actually mainly worked in their parking lot, clearing away their islands. This area right here used to be overrun with brush and dead grass, and so I cleared all this out so that they could plant some native species and bring back some of the wildlife. I also did this around the building, and this area wasn't too bad, but it still looks better than it did before. And again, that helps to get rid of any unnecessary plants and to bring back the native wildlife. I also got to remove some buckthorn, and that was an adventure. They had just tons and tons of buckthorn, and it grew big, like as tall as I was, basically. And it is a pretty nasty plant to pull, so that was an adventure. This picture over here, this actually isn't a picture from the nature preserve, but I did go out one day and help to stand up some little saplings that were bent over. The nature preserve has a bunch of little saplings planted around with these cages around them. And what happened was there was a storm, and the cages were tipped over, and so the trees would have broken if I wouldn't have gone out there and stood them up. So I helped with that project a little bit. I also said earlier that I helped with the educational aspect of the preserve. The preserve, like Raquel said earlier, brings in students from the Milwaukee area to learn more about nature, and so they had a homeschool group come in one day, and I helped with frog dissection. So that was pretty cool. I also helped monitor the wildlife in some of the ponds that are on the preserve, and this was one of them. Emily Biaggi has cages set up in these ponds. And kind of like what we did on our landfill tour where we looked at macroinvertebrates, you can do the same thing with these ponds and look at the fish to determine the purity of the water, because some fish can't tolerate living in warm polluted water and some fish can. So we looked in the traps to see what kind of fish were there to determine the quality of the water. And then on one day when I went to the preserve, the weather wasn't so great outside, so I spent the day cleaning this fish tank. That was another adventure, but yeah. All right, and now Raquel will tell you about her experience and she'll wrap it up for us.
Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures, so I'm sorry for that. You can stare at this screen. But what I did was basically what we did in lab. I planted trees, mulched them, tagged them, and also named some of the worms and trees to make time go by faster. And I just like naming things, it's fun. So our take-home message is that biodiversity is essential to the environment, and invasive species take over the area and they're not good for the natural species that are there, and therefore they need to be removed. So now I'll hand it over to Ashley with our test questions.
So for our test questions, we had how does nature benefit from Mequon Nature Preserve, or in what ways do invasive species harm biodiversity? I realize that the invasive species question has come up a couple times already, so maybe also what is ornithology, and that's the study of birds.
Thank you very much.
Any questions or comments? Ashley, you said you saw how many different species?
21 the second time, and then the first time between 26 and 27, I think, maybe 25 and 27, I would say is probably more accurate. And there will be overlap between the two, because we saw red-tailed hawks both times, I know, and some other things, but yeah.
That's like one of the main points of Mequon Nature Preserve, right? Like bring back different species of habitat. Has anyone in here been bird watching or birding, as the birders like to call it? I mean, you can do it, you don't have to, like, I don't know, get on fancy gear or whatever to go and look for different birds, but that is, I really haven't done it in a very beginning way. I mean, if you're walking around and just observe things, and it's neat to see different kinds of birds and stuff. I think that would be a kind of neat thing to go appreciate that some more. And if you do that, I think you really get the point of biodiversity too. And you can go your whole life not really caring about seeing different animals, but then you would be missing a lot in your life. So that's one encouragement that in this class is to get to appreciate that. Okay, so what is that called?
Ornithology?
Oh, ornithology. Okay. And any other comments or questions?